All right. Okay. So it was a bit of dukkha with the technology to start with. That's always part of how it goes. Okay. So are you ready? Yeah, you sure? Okay, good. Okay. I'm glad you're ready because otherwise, if you're not ready or not ready, it's still going to happen. So we're having a look at the first verse of the Mahāmangala-sutta, yeah? Asevana chabalanang panditanang sevana puja cha puja niyanang etang mangalamuttamang. Yeah? And it's all about this ability to distinguish between the wise people and the unwise people. And it is very important because this is the foundation for the entire Buddhist path. We often talk about the idea of, being, listening to the Aryas, the noble ones, understanding who are the so-called superior people and inferior people from a Dhamma point of view. And this is a foundational, because this is where right view comes from. This is where our ability to practice the path comes from. And so I want to discuss this in a little bit more today. And because I think this, in many ways, is the most important part of the Mahāmangala-sutta, because it provides a very solid foundation for being able to do the practice. So the next part here now is about how to recognize a fool, and therefore also how to recognize the wise person. So we'll just dive into it, and then we'll see how things go. So this is what we already saw yesterday. This is from the longer discourse on the cowherd, the Gopālakasutta, the Mahāgopālakasutta, I think it's called. And very simple, just like as we saw yesterday. How is a mendicant skilled in characteristics? It's when a mendicant understands that the fool is characterized by their deeds, and the wise person is characterized by their deeds. That's how a mendicant is skilled in characteristics. So you just have to observe. And if you observe wisely, then you will be able to tell who is a fool and who is a wise person. Be a little bit careful. Sometimes it can be tricky to see these things. Remember that wise people, the reason why they are wise, especially if they are very wise, if they are Aryas, they are noble ones, they're going to be a little bit different from ordinary people. They're not going to be the standard kind of kindness, the standard kind of generosity. It's going to be a bit outside of the norm. So be also a bit humble in your judgment. Yes, trust your judgment to some extent, but also be a bit humble at the same time. And understand that what you're looking for is a deeper kind of spiritual qualities from what you are used to thinking. So, for example, ordinary people are often kind to each other because they want something in return. It's often kind of a trade, it's a deal. They're not really independent of each other. And so the kindness has some vested interest, some ulterior motives that drives the kindness or drives the way they treat other people. But a wise person, if someone is truly wise, they don't really care about you if you like them or not. That's not the point. They live to do the best for other people, and sometimes that can be painful. A wise person will maybe tell you when you're going wrong. They don't care if you like them or not, and so even if you don't like them, they will do what is in your best interest very often. And so there isn't that sense of ego behind things that you often find with ordinary people. And this is a very important point, because when we look, we should look deeper than we normally look, and we should understand that things are not always as simple as they may seem. Even if they don't please us, that does not mean that they are not Aryans necessarily. On the other hand, they should not treat us badly, because treating someone badly is obviously a sign of defilements. So it's like a balance there. Someone who is really truly bad, or you should reject them straight away. That's not what it means. It means more like the fact that you are, you are more willing and able to deal with other people's responses, regardless of what they are. I hope, I'm not sure if that made any sense to you, but so anyway, yeah, so recognize people by their deeds. Is this a wise person or an unwise person? But be careful, be circumspect in the way you do that. All right. It's like, just to give you an example, maybe, you may go to someone like, sometimes you go to Ajahn Brahm and you ask him a question. And someone like Ajahn Brahm, he will kind of feel, he will look at you and he will see, well, why are you asking this question? And sometimes you ask the question to get something confirmed. Yeah, you want a certain answer. Yeah, oh, Ajahn Brahm, is it not true that it is like this? So maybe even if you don't use those words, you want something confirmed. And if he feels that you are going to him not to really ask a question, but to get confirmed what you already think, yeah, get your prejudice confirmed, then he will say, no, that's wrong. Yeah. Because he knows that you're not open, he knows that you're not really listening anyway, yeah? So he will kind of say, okay, no, in that case, he's not going to give you that sense of ego boost necessarily, which you are searching for. And this is kind of how maybe the Aryas work sometimes. They're not there to kind of give you that feedback that kind of feeds your ego. They are there more to kind of give you a sense of mirror on yourself. And you will see, well, actually, yes, good point. Why did I really ask that question? Well, I just wanted to get something confirmed. I wasn't really so interested in the answer. I wanted you to tell me I was right. And that can be a kind of typical thing that you see sometimes. You know what I mean? Yeah, sometimes we ask these kind of questions, yeah? All right, so let's go on. So again, how to recognize the fool and the wise person. The next sutta is called irrational. A fool is known by three things. So this is now the Anguttara Nikaya. AN means Anguttara Nikaya, the numerical discourses. This is the chapter of threes, the fifth sutta. A fool is known by three things. What three? They ask a question irrationally. Irrationally here is Ayoniso. It's like unwisely, basically, without wisdom. Ayoniso, I think, is the Pali behind this. They answer a question unwisely. And when someone else answers a question wisely, with well-rounded, coherent, and relevant words and phrases, they disagree with it. Right? Have you noticed that sometimes that some people, they have kind of, they live in a slightly, they do things that are not necessarily wise. You ask questions, maybe like I just said before, to get something confirmed that you already believe, or you ask questions in kind of without really thinking it through properly, what you're asking. Very often we don't need to ask questions. Very often we know the answer already. We just need to look inside of ourselves. A lot of the time we can just remain quiet, and that's the best thing to do. And so sometimes the questions are not necessarily all that meaningful. And then when you answer a question, you don't do it also in a good way. You do it in a kind of silly way that doesn't really get to the point, or doesn't really focus on the essence of the issue, which we should normally focus on. And you can see that in people. People vary in the way they speak and the way they deal with questions in this way. And then when someone else gives a really good answer to a question, which is well put, etc., they kind of don't really, they don't get it. And this is how you see someone who is foolish, perhaps. The astute person, the wise person, is known by three things. What three? They ask a question wisely. They answer a question wisely. And someone else answers a question wisely with well-rounded, coherent, and relevant words and phrases. They agree with it. It's interesting, isn't it? These things in the suttas that, I don't know, you wouldn't necessarily expect them to be there. There's lots of little details like this in the suttas that are kind of hidden away, that you have to know the suttas really well to kind of find them. The reason I find these passages, it's not because I can remember all of these suttas. I can't, because there's like thousands of suttas. I can't remember everything. But sometimes I will just search on a key word and I will get the relevant suttas. That's how kind of sometimes you have to do things, because you can't remember all the content that is there. And sometimes I'm surprised because I read it before, but I have no memory of reading it. It's like completely gone from my memory. It's also weird. Sometimes you may write something, and maybe years later on, you look at what you have written and you can't believe you wrote this, because I can have no memory of writing something. You know how that is? Or maybe I'm getting senile or dementia or something, but I don't know what it is, but sometimes it is like that. So all of these little things are found in the suttas, and if they are there, it means that they are meaningful in a certain way. It means we should take it seriously. The fact that the way someone speaks, the way they ask questions, can be a giveaway to how they think, what kind of person they are. All right, let us move on. I'm going quite fast because I don't think it needs that much comment for many of these things. So we'll comment more later on. So now we come to the Dhammapada again. One of those favorite little collections of verse. And this is a very famous little verse right here. This is one of those things that stand out when you read the Dhammapada. The fool who thinks they are a fool is wise, at least to that extent. But the true fool is said to be the one who imagines that they are wise. If you understand, if you are a bit humble about yourself, and you understand your own limitations, you understand that, okay, there are other people in the world who are wiser than I am, who have understood more, like number one, the Buddha, then that is a positive thing, because it means you will search for something wiser, you will search for something higher, you have a degree of humility about yourself. And humility, as we shall see later on, is actually a very important aspect of a wise human being. But if you think that you are smart, if you think that you are wise, when actually you're foolish, you're not even going to search. You're not going to listen to people who really are wiser than you, and so you're going to be stuck because of that. You're not going to make any way forward. One of the very interesting things in the suttas also is that someone who thinks they are a stream enter, when they are not, they are also blocked on the path. Because if you think you have an achievement that you haven't got, then you're not going to try for that achievement anymore. You're not going to understand what is really going on. You're not going to go deep enough in your meditation, deep enough in your insight, because you think you're already there. And so the idea that you have achieved something that you haven't is going to be a big blockage on the path. And so I would always recommend you to be humble. And even if you have a beautiful meditation that is really deep, don't go around and proclaiming to the world, I'm enlightened, this is it, Because one of the things about the Buddhist path, which is so amazing, is that there is so many degrees of happiness, joy, tranquility, insight. It comes in so many levels. So sometimes people say, I got into a nice meditation. I could see the 5 jhana factors. Have you heard about the 5 jhana factors? So 5 jhana factors, vitakka, vichara, piti, sukha, ekaggata. So vitakka, vichara, well, how do we translate those words? It's very kind of controversial, at least in some circles. Piti, sukha, it means basically the movement of the mind. That's what it means, basically. Piti, sukha, joy and happiness. Ekaggata, one-pointedness. And so these qualities can seem to be there, and they will be there to some extent. But actually, it is not just the presence of those qualities that make it the first jhana. It is a particular kind of presence of those qualities, a particular degree. Not just any presence, but a degree, a certain depth and profundity of presence that is required. And in fact, the 5 jhana factors are not mentioned that often in the suttas. People are not aware of that. They think that the jhana factors is how you define the jhana, but not really. The way you define a jhana is according to the jhana formula found in the suttas, and that's quite different. That is viviceva kammehi, vivicha akusalehi dhammehi. and then etc. I can't remember all the details of the first jhana formula. That's how it begins, and that is how you decide whether something is a jhana or not. So you need to know a bit more about the suttas. And so be humble about things. Be careful. Ask someone who you think has insight into these deep meditations and who understands these matters. Yeah. Personally, I've always asked Ajahn Brahm because I've taken him to be my teacher. He has always impressed me by his understanding, by the depth of his person, all of these things. And so I've taken him as my guide. And hopefully I'm right. What if I'm wrong? What if I've chosen the wrong teacher? Yeah, is that possible? It is always possible. You never know until you are enlightened yourself. Yeah, and if you never get enlightened, you never know. So you have a problem. So you just can only do your best in this world. But that's why it is important to be humble, because your best is not always as good as it should be. Yeah, our best is sometimes not perfect. Our best is still a little bit foolish, and that's the problem. And so be careful. Try to understand your own limitations. There's something also about understanding your limitation which is kind of scary as well, because sometimes you understand how trapped you are in your habits, in the ways you are, and sometimes you feel this is scary, because you don't really have that overview, that broad understanding that you wish you had, and you are kind of, you are going on automatic, you're going on habits of the past. And that can be helpful. Don't get too scared. That's not helpful at all. But a little bit of concern. Yeah, okay, I better get out of this because you realize that you are trapped, and that it's never nice to be trapped. It's never nice to be in prison. Yeah, if you know that you're in prison, it's not nice, right? So you think, oh, I'm in prison. Okay, I better get out of this prison before it's too late. Ajahn Brahm has this nice saying that the prison door is open. You can walk out at any time. But instead of walking out, you think, oh yeah, this is so nice here in prison. Yeah, oh, this is so beautiful. I can change the prison cell. I don't have to have the gray walls. I can paint the walls blue, yeah, or pink, or I don't know what your favorite color is. Yeah, green or whatever. And yay, now the prison cell is so nice. Yeah, so I will stay in prison because it's such a beautiful prison. It's like the pile of dung, yeah, holding into the pile, a similar kind of thing. But the prison door is open. Why don't you go through it? No, I love the prison cell. Yeah, the color is so nice. I spent so much time painting it. I want to stay here. It's called the sunk cost fallacy. You have painted the prison cell so much. You know the sunk cost fallacy? Yeah. Okay. Good. So so it's helpful to understand your own limitations. It's really helpful because it allows you to move on. It allows you to gain a sense of urgency sometimes. All right. Okay. So now, that's some of the qualities of the fool. So now we're going to come to choosing good companions. Why it matters and how to choose good companions. You can see I'm putting a lot of emphasis on this because I wanted to bring out many suttas on this topic, and there's quite a lot of suttas, and that gives you an idea that this was important. The Buddha saw this as foundational, otherwise he wouldn't say so many suttas on this topic. So you should be disgusted. Isn't that an interesting title for a sutta, right? You should be disgusted. So what is it that we should be disgusted by? Let's have a look. So this is Numerical Discourses, the 3's number 27. These three individuals are found in the world. All right? What three? There is an individual you should be disgusted by, and you shouldn't associate with, accompany, or attend to them. There is an individual you should regard with equanimity, and you shouldn't associate with, accompany, and attend to them. There is an individual you should associate with, accompany, and attend to. So these are the three individuals. So it's kind of interesting. You should be disgusted by some kind of people. So remember, when the Buddha says you should be disgusted by somebody, it doesn't mean you should necessarily judge. You should judge them in one way, but not in another way. You shouldn't judge them by getting angry with them or look upon them as they are lesser or inferior or anything like that. But you should be disgusted in the sense that you want to keep your distance because you see the danger. But you shouldn't feel superior or anything like that. That's kind of just your own defilements if you do that. So there's a kind of fine line here. You need to understand the right kind of disgust. Not the disgust that leads to defilements for you, because if it leads for defilements for you, well then it's kind of counterproductive. So you shouldn't feel proud or better or anything like that. You should just understand the danger of such a person. That's the point. Then there's a person you should regard with equanimity. You should just kind of look at them and say, yeah, whatever, and go your own way. And then there's the one you should associate with. So 3 kinds of people. So this is interesting. So let's see the person who you should be disgusted by, what that means. Who is the individual you should be disgusted by, not associate with, accompany, and attend to? It is an individual who is unethical, who has bad qualities, who is filthy, with suspicious behavior, underhand, no true ascetic or spiritual practitioner, though claiming to be one, rotten inside. Festering and depraved, you should be disgusted by such an individual, and you should not associate with and accompany and attend to them. You can see why that is the case. You don't really want to hang out with such people. But still, the Buddha says, well, why is it that you shouldn't associate with such people? And then he says, even if you don't follow the example of such an individual, you still get a bad reputation. That individual has bad friends, bad companions, and bad associates. So even if you don't follow the example, the point, of course, is that if you have friends like that, you will be conditioned by them. And, sometimes you will be compromised because of the way they are. Maybe not always, but a lot of time you will. And so this is a very important reason why to stay away from such people. Because it's very hard not to be compromised. Because if you grow up in a family of criminals, you would tend to become a criminal because you want to be accepted by your family. You want to be accepted by your friends. So it's very hard not to follow the example to some extent. But even if you don't, you get a bad reputation. It's not nice for people who hang out with dodgy people. We kind of suspect them straight away. We wonder whether they really are pure because of that. And we say that they have bad friends, and it's kind of considered negative. They are like a snake that's been living in a pile of dung. That's kind of bad, isn't it? You're a snake and the snake has been in a pile of dung. Is that common? Do snakes live in piles of dung? Is that usual the case? I don't know. No, okay. So this must be an unusual snake then, living in a pile of dung. Even if the snake doesn't bite you, it will still rub off on you. So this snake is doubly dangerous. In the same way, even if you don't follow the example of such an individual, you still get a bad reputation. That individual has bad friends, companions, and associates. That's why you should be disgusted by such an individual, and you shouldn't associate with, accompany, and attend to them. So, there you are. I don't know what you think. Maybe you think Buddha is kind of demanding a lot, and he is, what about those poor people who are like this? How are they ever going to get out of it if good people like you don't associate with them? It's true. And the answer is that they will have to find out on their own, because very often they cannot be helped very easily. If someone has very bad qualities, often they are trapped in those bad qualities, and sometimes we just have to kind of let them be, and eventually they may find a way out of this. It sounds like a very harsh way of living your life. You don't associate with those people. But the reason why it is so important, because we often tend to underestimate how powerfully influenced we are by other people. We think that we can stand our ground. We think that we have some inherent ethical compass that will always drive us in the right direction. But actually we haven't got that. There is no inherent ethical compass. We are like this. We are completely out of control basically. And because of that, we need to look after ourselves first. When you are a stream enterer, when you are an Aryan, or maybe when you have good samadhi, then you can help other people better because you have a platform, you have a ground on which you can stand, and you are able to actually deal with the problems of the world and the vicissitudes of the world because you have a certain stability. But before that, you need to be very careful with what you do. We need to look after ourselves first, then look after other people. Like the Buddha says in the Saleka Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 8, it says you can only pull someone else out of the mud if you are already out of your mud yourself. If you are also in the quicksand, you're both going to go into the quicksand and disappear from the world, right? So first of all, get yourself onto the dry ground, then help the other person. Don't help the other person first, because then you're both going to drown probably. That's much worse. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break, and then we do some Q&A.
Hello, Bhante. Regarding Dhammapada 63, you mentioned something about a fallacy. I didn't quite catch that.
Something about?
A fallacy or something?
Fallacy?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, something
about fallacy here. Sunk cost fallacy, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right, yeah, the sunk cost fallacy, right. So that is this idea that you have already expended a lot of money or time or something in investing in something, and because you have already expended a lot of money or time on something, you want to carry on because you have already spent so much time and money. However, if something is wrong, you should just stop right now. You shouldn't kind of keep on doing it. If something doesn't work out, then you shouldn't expend more time and money, even though you have already sunk some money and time into that thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like investing in the stock exchange.
Right,
or
yeah.
like okay, thank you.
Similar to the investing in the stock exchange. It's going down and you want to, or you understand you made a mistake, but then you kind of add more harm to what you've done already, or something like that, yeah. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, Bhante, I'm referring to page 17, Anguttara Nikaya 3.5. I'm actually following the kind of logic Buddha uses when he describes behavior. And here he only mentions 3. I think it should be 4. Number 1 is that they ask questions irrationally.
Yeah.
Number 2 is they answer questions irrationally.
Yeah.
And here, number 3 is that when someone says something that is rational, they tend to disagree.
Yeah.
I think there should be a 4th one if I'm using the logic that Buddha normally uses describing behavior, and that is, when somebody answers a question irrationally and improperly, they tend to agree. That's what a fool should be.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
Normally, Buddha is very complete with this kind of description of behavior.
Yeah.
But that one seems to be missing.
That seems to be missing. Yeah. The thing is that the Buddha, the way he expresses the Dhamma is he does it in so many different ways. And one of the dangers is to try to fit everything into categories, to try to fit everything into the standard ways of doing things. And this is what you find in some of the later canonical literature, like the Netipakkhadana. You know the Netipakkhadana? It is a exegetical work that is sometimes considered part of the Khuddaka Nikaya. And what they do, they explain all the sutras in terms of the Four Noble Truths. Because the Four Noble Truths is said to be the overarching framework for everything in the Dhamma. And so the argument is that, that means all the sutras must somehow fit into the Four Noble Truths. But there is a danger with that. There's a danger with reducing the Dhamma to something that is a bit more simplistic than it actually is. Not everything can assist, even though the Four Noble Truths is overarching, it may be too simplistic to think that everything actually can be fitted neatly into that framework. Sometimes something may be a little bit on the edge, maybe between two categories, or maybe it may be outside the Four Noble Truths, but somehow still be part of the Dhamma in a slightly different way. And I think here you have a very interesting point. I think that what you are saying is probably true. There's nothing wrong with what you're saying, but that does not necessarily mean that that is what the Buddha wants to talk about here. This can still be true, even though what you are saying is also true. See, I'm not disputing what you're saying. I'm just saying that there may be an alternative way of looking at it. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So, but that is an interesting point. You have shown your profound understanding of how the Buddha explains the Dhamma by even mentioning that. So I hadn't thought of that myself. So congratulations.
Happy morning, Bhante.
Happy morning. Okay, that's very nice way of putting things. Yeah. Okay.
I want to know whether is it a fool or not. For he or she always think that I'm not good enough.
Who is that?
He or she always think that I'm not good enough.
Okay.
I have not perfected.
Yeah.
So is he or he a fool? This is the problem. Most of the problem in the world is raised from this.
Yeah.
How to deal with this? This concept.
Okay. No, thank you, Sriling. That's an interesting point, actually. If you say I'm not good enough, does that mean you're wise or does it mean you're a fool? Yeah. And it's a very interesting point, because on the one hand, we are all kind of trying for something higher. Yeah. So from that perspective, we're not really good enough because we're trying to reach something higher. On the other hand, it can become a psychological barrier. I am not good enough. Yeah, I want to be better. I'm kind of not where I am. And so you become hard on ourselves. We don't have compassion for ourselves. And this is also a problem. So both can be true, I think, Sriling, and this is kind of where it's hard. But I would recommend you to have a lot of self-compassion. Remember that we are all trapped. We are trapped by our habits. We are trapped by our past. We are trapped by, all of this conditioning is basically a trap. And so don't think that you can be any better. You can't be any better than what you are right now. However, you can develop yourself to be better in the future. But right now, you can only be what you are because you have these conditions and things coming into your life. And so the way that we can get out of that is that we have all the past coming into the present. But in the present, we have a possibility of bringing in the Dhamma as well. So all the conditions of the past form us into what we are now. But then if we are careful, if we stop, if we reflect, if we are circumspect, if we are wise, we wait for the Dhamma to arise, that the Dhamma illuminates the situation we're in right now, so we can make new decisions in the present. We don't allow the past habits to determine what we're doing now. We allow the Dhamma to also come into this. And this is how we change things. But if you haven't got the Dhamma, if you haven't got the spiritual teaching, then you will be fully determined by the past, by your habits, by your conditioning of the past. And there's no way you can move in a new direction. The Dhamma is what allows you to move in a new direction. That's why we have the Dhamma. So allow the Dhamma to arise. Yeah, it's like the simile I was saying yesterday about walking in the forest, and then kind of suddenly your path is blocked. Don't just chop down that tree straight away. Wait for an alternative route. Yeah, don't allow your mind to be compelled by your ill will and your desires and drive you in a certain way. Stop, wait and see what is the Dhamma way here. Allow the Dhamma to arise within you, because the Dhamma is there. Yeah, you all know a lot of Dhamma already. Maybe not everyone. I'm not sure if every one of you is super duper Dhamma, but many of you, I know a lot about Dhamma. Some of you know more than me about the Dhamma. Billy just came up with some idea that I never heard before. So there you are. Yeah, so you know a lot already. It's just a matter of applying it, allowing it to arise in your mind so it actually can guide you in the right way. That is what it is about. So don't allow yourself to be stopped by the past habits. Anyway, does that help at all, Sriling? Yeah? Yeah, so be kind to yourself. Have a lot of self-compassion, yeah? Be kind to Bobby, because Bobby also trapped in his habits. Be kind to each other, you know? This is one of the really hard things about being husband and wife. Yeah, it's really hard to be husband and wife. This is one of the reasons I never got married. I got out of that very early on. I realized, so dangerous to get married. And because when you live together for such a long time, it's very easy to lose the sense of compassion for each other. Yeah, and we become a bit fault-finding with each other, a bit hard on each other. But as husband and wife, it's so important, or as partners or whatever, it's so important that we have compassion for each other and we understand that we are all trapped in these ways, yeah? So next time Bobby does something funny, Xue Ling, give him a hug instead, yeah? And say something nice to him. That is the way forward. Anyway, please. The reverse is equally true. Absolutely. But Xue Ling was asking the questions. I was talking to Xue Ling in this case. But you are very, very right. The reverse is absolutely equally true. Okay.
My question, Ajahn. I'm asking from the perspective of people like us who are doing quite a bit of things like this, outreach, Dhamma outreach, and providing opportunities for people to come together for Dhamma. One of the things we realized, very, very interesting. Yesterday we talked about fools and the foolish and all that, and I'm just asking that a lot more like what maybe you can share an example. If let's say, which is already happening, that by the virtue of the work we do attract people to come to join us in the things we do and things like this. We also attract the real fools. I mean the people who are inevitably we are very inclusive. We welcome anyone, but there are people who can be quite disruptive and also destructive. At some point, there are one or two individuals who somehow they can't fit into general society or general, and they can be a spoiler to the things we try to do. Even though we try to be inclusive, we include them, but they can be quite destructive in some ways. Could be the words they use, could be then they socialize with the other people that we are, the people that we have, and then they can be quite a spoiler in some ways. I'm just wondering, Ajahn, if you in your monastic, I'm sure you will also encounter situations like this. What are the ways in which we deal with it our way, which is the normal way of using our procedures, and maybe not procedure, but more of like, okay, you talk to her and then you talk to him, and we try to sort it out that way. Is there other ways while maintaining this idea of compassion and things like this? It's kind of hard for. It is
very tricky. It's a very tricky question, and it is important to that the Buddhist communities that we have, that we look after them, because otherwise that community loses its purpose. And so we need to have a certain integrity in the community. And so it depends on the strength of that community, how many such people you can take on board. And I've seen that in Bodhinyana Monastery with Ajahn Brahm. Ajahn Brahm is this incredibly compassionate person. And it doesn't matter who it is, he will always accept them in. And even if the other monks said, no, please, not that one. It's just too difficult, it's too hard. Ajahn Brahm said, no problem, he can come in. Yeah. And I think the idea is that you learn to grow also by having difficult people, because you learn to deal with them personally in the right way. And Ajahn Brahm tells the story. There's a story about, I don't know if you heard of this, there was a kind of spiritual fellow called Gurdjieff. Have you heard about Gurdjieff? He was I think a Russian originally, and he went to England and he became kind of a guru in England. This was back in the, when was this? Was it 1950s or maybe earlier than? Maybe even earlier than that. And there was one person, he kind of had a community of people that were living in this manor house or something like that in England. And they had this community of people. And there was one person in the community that was really difficult. And so everyone was kind of going to Gurdjieff all them saying, this person is really difficult. Yeah, can we please kick him out? Yeah, he's just too hard to deal with. He's always causing trouble, always having arguments, just like the people you're talking about, but maybe even worse. Niwern. So, really, really hard person. And always Gurdjieff would say, yeah, we'll sort it out. But he never did anything. This person always remained in the community, right? And then after Gurdjieff died, they went through the accounts. And they found out in the accounts that Gurdjieff had paid this person to be in the community. That's the story, right? So I don't know if that's what Ajahn Brahm tells. That's the story he tells, and but and whether that's true or not, it's kind of interesting. The idea is that sometimes you learn from difficult people. And so ideally, what we do is we learn to deal with these difficult people in a way by changing our attitude. Because that is always the answer to everything. You cannot change the world. The world is the way it is. You are one person. The world is 8 billion. How on earth are you going to change the world? It's absolutely impossible. You can only change yourself. You can change your attitude, your perceptions, your compassion, all these kind of things. And so you learn to change yourself. That is the ideal way of doing things. However, not all spiritual communities have the same strength. Sometimes a spiritual community, you just get drowned in difficulties. And when you get drowned in difficulties, you lose your ability to even have enough reflectiveness to be able to change. You can't change anymore because you get trapped in all the negativity. And so you need to find that balance. What are we able to do? And when does it go too far and we just can't deal with this person because everyone just gets negative and the whole community starts to fall apart? And so we have to to judge that situation. And so certain monasteries, they don't accept certain people precisely because they are afraid of the whole thing falling apart, if you like.
Because as leaders of the community, our instinct is always to protect the community itself, the protection. Where does it go?
Yeah.
While we want to be inclusive, we also want to be protective. So
right.
This is always a tricky.
So what is your secret? What is your secret sauce, Niwern?
I've learned now yesterday that to procrastinate. maybe procrastination may.
That's the secret to procrastinate. Yeah. Often it works itself out. You go through kind of a little bit of a difficult time, and suddenly it kind of resolves itself. You don't have to do anything. It's interesting how that is. Yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Anyway, so I think we are overdue for a bit of for carrying on. So let's carry on with the sutta.